There's a rather unhealthy politicization of pretty much everything around, and it has gone so big to the point where it's invading our everyday entertainment media. My channel has always been dedicated on calling out all of these unnecessary politicizations in entertainment media because they are misrepresenting the entertainment media, and they were done in order to push some form of narrative. And you know, I'm not scared on the prospect that some journalists are writing misrepresentative articles about certain things in the entertainment media. I can make videos and try to correct them. No. I'm scared on the prospect of people believing in the fake news before anything actually happens. One of which includes the fake news surrounding PewDiePie, which I am shocked that people still buy the narrative that he's a Nazi even to this day. Recently, when PewDiePie was posing with the band Gorillaz, some people are still mad that PewDiePie was posing with them. They went out to call PewDiePie a racist Nazi Hitler who paid a couple of guys in Fiverr to say the word death to all Jews as a way to protest of how ridiculous Fiverr is. Some people are of course rightfully pointing out that it was Wall Street Journal fake news and that the joke was taken out of context. It's all thanks to people who have done research and PewDiePie himself for multiple times in his channel clearing the facts and telling everybody of how they are fake news.
I made a point that the media takes what I say out of context. They take that and put it out of context to use against me and to portray me as a Nazi. They used another video where I joke that the YouTube Heroes program is seen basically like a Nazi scheme, where I look at a Hitler speech, and they use that as proof that I'm a Nazi or anti-Semite. I'm not kidding. They used even me pointing my arm like this. Technically, they can use this as evidence as well, because that's what they did. I'm not joking. The Wall Street Journal did this. It's the most absurd thing I have ever heard.
Thanks to these attacks on PewDiePie, he has managed to lecture all of his audiences that people shouldn't believe everything that the mainstream media says. And even more insane is thanks to PewDiePie, he's also telling the news to make people to not trust everything that the Swedish government says.
Sweden's hate registry? PewDiePie. No. Why? Why are we still here?
So if you guys missed the news, PewDiePie was recently on a block list from the Swedish government official Twitter. He made an entire video on it pretending to cry about it, which is hilarious. Yeah, PewDiePie is apparently on Sweden's government hate list. Thankfully, this list has been redacted, but that begs the question on why and how can PewDiePie enter Sweden's hate registry? Well, it turns out that we have more news came in and something very interesting happens. Meet Vian Tahir. Who is she? Well, she is a curator who ran the official Sweden Twitter account. In the official Sweden Twitter account, there's a block list of over 14,000 people, one of which, of course, includes PewDiePie and the writer of one of the articles that I cited. During a little bit of digging, I find out that her Twitter account is protected. And not only that, but she also has her own block list, which matches 97.7% of the official Sweden Twitter account block list. Oh, if that's not enough, here's a leaked email basically confirming that the block list was entirely made by her. It's a block list I've been working for a long time, focusing on trolls, which makes me protected from the worst of it, so I'd rather not use Twitter without it on such a big account like @Sweden. So in other words, all of this is because of this woman over here. And you know what's even more interesting? She has a couple of interesting opinions to say about a lot of things. Tahir wrote an article called When Hatred Becomes a Game, published at fria.new, a website with a progressive feminist bent that published pieces like Challenge Your Senses, Listening to a Dildo, and Fat Cells Should Be Treated with the Same Respect as Any Other, a piece on fat body positivity. And that's where I would go, Jesus Christ, Kenji was right. A feminist is now taking over control of Sweden's official Twitter account? What if they're controlling every fabric of the government? Wait, what if they already are? In Tahir's article, she claims that PewDiePie has a significant following of neo-Nazis. Tahir also summarizes Gamergate as an online movement whose misogynistic supporters made a game out of harassing women online. Well, add that to the list of people putting Gamergate as a hate movement to drive women out of gaming. And please, for the love of God, do not harass her. I can't believe that I have to say this, but some idiots are still doing this crap. And the politicization of entertainment media does not stop there. I made countless of videos of Marvel's political correctness, one of which involves my country, and that pisses me off beyond belief. I've had way too many troubles to deal with in my country, and now you're adding Marvel Comics into the mix. When my country is dealing with actual racists who wants to get a Chinese Christian mayor who criticizes the Quran to be jailed, while at the same time I have jihadists bombing Jakarta right after the Manchester incident, you might figure out on why I'm getting sick of real-world politics being shoved down my throat. I want to enjoy PewDiePie and comics and video games without people politicizing them. The thing is, I really don't want to complain about these people shoving politics down my throat, but I have to, because they're starting to annoy me. Some people might go, well, you can just, not listen to them. And there's the big problem in that statement. I might have the privilege of not listening to them, but others will. And that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is others believing in their lies. Some of these people's reach are insane. I made a video about Google's representation nonsense with a face detection machine that looks fake and very questionable methodologies in gathering their data. This incredibly questionable research is being shoved down to producers and directors in Hollywood, and about 60+% of them believe in it. They're believing in something that is very flawed and highly questionable. Now, I do make videos where bloggers say stupid things and they have the reach of almost nobody. I do that because sometimes what they say is so stupid, might as well have some fun. But sometimes these misinformation have a wide reach, and that's incredibly concerning. For example, Anita Sarkeesian. Anita made one boring video about Trump and she didn't really gain too much traction in the industry, but then GameIndustry.biz, one of the most influential sites about the gaming industry, is publishing articles about her work, even though she said incredibly huge misinformation regarding video games or the gaming community. You might think that these information about video games are trivial and not important, but keep in mind that the video game industry is one of the biggest and most profitable entertainment industry on the planet. We're talking about business here, and Anita's criticisms are gonna hinder on the quality of video games with that amount of influence she had, therefore causing nothing but waste of money. And then there are other things like the ESA Report, which I did another video on, and the misrepresentative data about the demographics of gamers in general are going to be used by people to push whatever unnecessary political agendas they have. Again, you might be saying, oh, video games are not important, PewDiePie is not important, but then politics become more and more serious and they invade your everyday life. And this brings me to Far Cry 5. If you guys don't know, Far Cry 5 is going to feature cultists as the enemy, and that's fine, that's okay, but this leads to some interesting interpretations.
Far Cry 5, let's fight some Republicans, is what I'm getting from this poster. Will they screw it up by making the baddies sympathetic?
Well, from the launch trailers that I've seen, they pretty much lost their minds, so highly doubt that one. And why the hell are you lumping Republicans here? They might be Republicans, but pseudo-Christian cultists would be a more accurate term for them. I don't think that all Republicans are pseudo-Christian cultists who wants to take over the world and have lots of military powers in them. Oh, and speaking of Anita,
we're curious to see if Far Cry 5 engages critically with the white supremacy inherent in militia movement or just uses it for set dressing. White supremacy is maintained through violence. It's hard to imagine a game critiquing that, in which you win by being better at violence.
Anita, it's a Far Cry game, as in an open world first-person shooter. Of course it's gonna have violence. Now, don't get me wrong, if you're way more violent than them, that's definitely a problem, but the protagonists of Far Cry just tend to be people who are defending themselves against oppression. And if you want a game that deals with the theme of how more violence is only going to lead you into more trouble, Far Cry 3 deconstructed this premise by making the protagonist to slowly transition into a kill-hungry warrior, which you can have the choice to completely turn into one or go back to Western civilization with your deranged, drugged mind. I mean, you made a video about that game, right? So you should at least know that by now. And I can't wait for Far Cry 5. It looks pretty good. Has a nice setting and probably some nice soundtracks accompanying them. Will there be political elements in Far Cry 5? Sure, of course. It's a game about militia cultists who want to take over the world and we're gonna resist and fight against them. There are going to be political elements in the game. My worries is that they're gonna pull off a Far Cry 4. Don't get me wrong, there are things that I love about Far Cry 4. There are lots of significant gameplay improvements, most of which came from Blood Dragon anyway, but the story of Far Cry 4 was a load of garbage. The protagonist is completely bland and has no source of progression, and one thing that bothers me so much is I find Pagan Min to be a very sympathetic villain that, spoiler alert, isn't really that much of a villain after all. In fact, I find the Golden Path themselves to be a bunch of unsympathetic assholes, and the endings are both terrible, with the exception of that one joke ending which you waited for Pagan Min. I wish that I can pick sides on this battle and not arbitrarily going with the golden path. I wish that in the intro when you waited for Pagan Min and it goes, let's blow shit up in the end, I want the gameplay to continue on. The golden path is proven to be a bunch of assholes, so might as well tear them to pieces. Far Cry 4 got things backwards, probably intentionally as a way to go, oh shit, that's the twist for the player. And in my opinion, it was done very poorly. The story of Far Cry 4 in general was just bad, but I'm hoping that the writing for Far Cry 5 is better, with a more likable protagonist who can have a story arc like Far Cry 3, a more interesting villain that we love to hate instead of we love to love, and a better writing for the main heroes because they're poorly written in the last game. Anyway, I went off topic. So to conclude this video, there's nothing wrong with taking things in a more political perspective, but there are times in which it's absolutely unnecessary and it can get really annoying. There are times in which things were made political when they don't really have to be, and that is assuming that the approaches were made in an honest perspective. A lot of the times, these political approaches on things were made dishonestly by misrepresenting things that were politicized in order to push agendas. So out of all of this, honesty is important. If you want to talk about the political aspects of certain things in life, accurately representing the source material with factual evidence and data, and an honest outlook on them are necessary. You can be biased with your opinion, sure, but at least be honest and represent the things that you represent accurately. Before we end this video, huge thanks to Delacross, Jacob, and Liam Mail Vollmer for the pledges on Patreon. You guys are fantastic. That's all for the video today. If you like this, you can go ahead, click the like button, and subscribe for more. If you wish, you can support me on Patreon. And thanks for watching.